So my name's Adam. I'm one of the leadership team here, and it's great to have you with us this morning. Whether you've been before or you haven't been before, it's great that you could be with us on a Sunday morning. As a church, at the moment, we are going through looking at the Beatitudes. We started off this calendar year with a bit of the thought of actually this year we need to get more serious about following Jesus, what it is to apprentice after Jesus, to follow him and to make it more than just maybe a one-day-a-week type thing where we come out on a Sunday morning. And we really felt at that point that it'd be good to look at what is considered to be Jesus' greatest ever sermon. So looking at the Beatitudes, and then we'll move into the rest of the Sermon on the Mount after that. And we've been going through the Beatitudes one at a time over the past few weeks. If you've missed any, don't worry. We've got them all on our YouTube channel. You can find them and catch up if you want to, or re-watch them. And today I'm going to be looking at the Beatitude from Matthew 5:8, which says this. It says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." And I've really enjoyed looking at this Beatitude this week, as I do with most of them that I look at. It gives me a chance to really sort of start diving deeper into God. What are you saying? What would it have meant to the people who heard it? What does it mean to me now? What are we going to get from this? Is there more maybe than we sometimes see? And sometimes with the Bible we can read it and we can look at it and go, you know what? I've read that and skip straight on to the next verse without really thinking about what it means. And so what I want to do today is to dive deeper, a little bit deeper into what some of the words are in this "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God," and hopefully help us to see how this is going to help us follow Jesus, or apprentice after him, be that disciple of Jesus. And this really is one of the most striking Beatitudes that you read. If you read these Beatitudes, these blessed are statements of Jesus, this is really one of the most striking ones, because who can really claim to be pure in heart? Quite a bold statement, isn't it? Blessed are the pure in heart. Because if the reality is, if we look inside all of our hearts, there's lots of impurities. Okay? If you're not sure, if I was to ask you if you ever had a bad thought, I'm pretty sure every single one of us will say, yeah, I have. Bad thought, a bad attitude, bad desire, something that's not pure. And we may be able to hide this from other people, but the reality is we can't hide it from God. And here's this really striking challenge of blessed are the pure in heart. But the reality is, what can we learn from this? And so what I want to do today is just break it down by looking at a few of the words and just seeing, actually, what does the Bible help us to see about these words? I want to look at the word pure. I want to look at the word heart. And then we're going to look at pure heart together. And just start to understand exactly what it is that Jesus is calling us to. And hopefully as we do this, it'll help us understand how maybe we can try and follow him. Or maybe, as the message that seems to be coming through this morning through the worship, maybe how we need the grace of God to help us in following him. Because I think the reality is, what this Beatitude is almost asking is almost the impossible. Which is why we need the grace and mercy of God to meet us where we are at. And the reality is, what is pure? What does pure even mean? Is it a word we even use much anymore? Do we use the word pure in our language about anything? I mean, pure in itself means that it's not mixed with anything else. It's an absolute term. Pure is unblemished. You know, it's a bit like me when I sing in such a pure note. I'm joking, it's not a pure note in the slightest. But pure is, you can't say that something is really purer. If something is pure, it is an absolute. You can't get purer than pure. You can definitely get purer than my singing, that is for sure. If you ever wondered why I stand at the front, so you can't hear me. If I stand at the back, you might be able to hear me. My singing is not pure. But pure means it's undefiled, it's not polluted. It is pure. So pure in itself is just when we start thinking about that word, in itself, if we're asked to be pure in heart, it's starting to sound hard, isn't it? But let's look at what some of the Bible has to tell us about being pure. What pure looks like. Because you might think, well, I can maybe get my head around pure in an earthly sense, but what do you mean in a following Jesus sense? What is pure according to Jesus? What does that look like? So let's look at what the Bible has to tell us. In James 3, 17, we read this, "But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere." First thing we start to see is as we look at this word pure in a greater sense is that heavenly wisdom is pure. Things that come from God are pure. There is purity there. If we're going to be followers of Jesus, the first thing we need to do is look to him. Because the wisdom that comes from him, the wisdom that comes from heaven is pure. God is pure. That's an absolute. I can't get purer than God. It's an absolute term. Every bit of wisdom he brings us is pure. But not just the wisdom and not just God. If we go even further and we read 1 John 3, verses 1 to 3, we read this. "See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God. And that is what we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know him." Dear friends, now we are children of God, and what we will be has not yet been made known. But we know that when Christ appears, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. All who have this hope in him purify themselves, just as he is pure. Jesus is pure. Heavenly wisdom, God is pure. Jesus is pure. There is a pureness that we're not going to see anywhere else on this earth. Like the pureness that comes from heaven, from Jesus. But not only do we read that Jesus is pure, it says all who have this hope in him purify themselves. If we are to be followers of Jesus, if we're to really apprentice after him, we need to be people who are looking to purify ourselves. Following Jesus isn't just about making a one-time decision and that's it, you're done. It's about purifying yourselves just as he is pure. It's about taking steps of faith. It's about knocking off the refining yourself, knocking off the tough edges, those hard bits. You should be able to see in your life the difference that Jesus is making. Are there things that have changed in your life since following Jesus? Should be. There should be. Because we should be purifying ourselves. There should be life change. And it should be an ongoing purity. There's funny words that we sometimes use in if you've ever been around Christians a while, sometimes they like big words. They don't always appear in the Bible either. Sometimes it's really, really great when these sort of things happen. You've got two words, sanctification and justification. And justification is one of those things when you believe in Jesus, you're justified by faith in him that you're saved. But then sanctification, the other word, is that ongoing process of being sanctified, of being purified, of becoming more like Jesus. And that is exactly what this is talking about here. It's not just about that one-time decision to follow Jesus. The purifying that Jesus wants to do in our lives is a lifetime thing. I don't care if you've been a Christian 70 years. Are you as pure as Jesus? No. There's more purifying that can happen. None of us are perfect. We all need purifying more and more and more. And that is what we're getting at here. We read in Titus 1, 15 and 16. As I said today, I'm going to be deep diving in and out of the Bible, all sorts of places. Don't worry if you can't follow them all. So you can listen back on YouTube or something like that if you want to and get all these references and look at them yourselves, which I encourage you to do, because this is a great way to read the Bible. Is when you read something, don't just take that verse or verses as it. Look widely, look further, see where those words appear within other places in the text. It is a great thing to do. But in Titus 1, 15 and 16, it says this. It says, "To the pure, all things are pure. But to those who are corrupted and do not believe, nothing is pure. In fact, both their minds and consciences are corrupted. They claim to know God, but by their actions they deny him. They are detestable, disobedient, and unfit for doing anything good." You see, if you're a real follower of Jesus, your actions will start to show pureness, purity. You'll start to see often, and there's another bit of a Christian term we use sometimes, fruit will grow in your life. You'll start to see growth in areas of your life. Maybe it's the fruit of the Spirit, the love, joy, peace, patience. But we'll start to see some difference. You will know the difference Jesus is making by the fruit in people's lives. For those of you that are sat there and thinking, I've been a follower of Jesus for ages. Has he made any difference? Has he changed any of the actions, any of the thoughts, any of the attitudes in your life? Hopefully he has. But don't let it stop there, because there's more. There's always more. There's more fruit that we can be growing. James 1:27 tells us this: religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. You see, being pure ourselves doesn't mean cutting ourselves off. Being pure doesn't mean I can't be near anyone else in the world because they're going to pollute me. No. Being pure means looking after the orphans and the widows, looking after the broken people in the world, looking after those that have less, those that are less fortunate maybe than we are. That is one of the outworkings of being pure. If you want to see real purity, look at those who give up their lives to help those that have less. We have a Pinehurst WhatsApp group called Pinehurst Prayer, and I shared a video early afternoon yesterday of some of the work that we gave money to as a church in Turkey and Syria at the moment. Some of the churches that are reaching out to support and help other people. You know, these people are tired, they're shattered, but they've left maybe the security of their homes to go and help those that are orphaned or widowed right now. There is a purity about that. There is something about that which Jesus calls us to. And I'm not saying that means we all need to go to Turkey or Syria, because there are plenty of people around us who are broken and need help. Plenty. You're not sure where they are? Come for a walk with me one day. We'll meet some. I meet them every day at the school gate. All you've got to do is sit out the front on one of the picnic benches, and people who walk past, you'll find there's brokenness and hurt and pain. What pure is, it means caring for others. Also, Philippians 1:9-11 tells us this, and this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for that day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God. See, it is Jesus is the one that makes us pure. We have a responsibility, but he's the ultimate one that makes us pure. Our responsibility, what is that? It's to abound in love. As Jesus keeps making us pure, as he keeps looking to purify us, as we come to him and say, purify me, we need to start out living that by abounding more and more in love. This goes back to that other verse. Who are we loving? If it's just those people who are already maybe Christian, I think we're missing something of the point of why Jesus came. If we're only loving the people who come to a church building on a Sunday morning, that's pretty easy maybe to love people who are a bit more like yourself. But Jesus, who did he come and eat with? Who did he come and spend time with? He came for the sick, as he referred them. He came for the lost. Do you come for the lost? Would you just like to hang out in your Christian bubble because it's safe? We need to abound in love for those that need to know Jesus more and more. But still, how do we work towards this purity? Well, the Bible's got something to tell us about that as well. In Psalm 119, 9-10, it says this: how can a young man keep his way pure? By living according to your word. I seek you with all my heart. Do not let me stray from your commands. How do we find this purity? How do we live in this purity? We live according to his word. We live according to what he's telling us. We need to seek him. Do you seek him? Do you stray from his commands? What is pure? It's living to the way he's told us to live. Do you want to know him more? Then seek him through his word, through his presence. You might be thinking, I want to know more, but I don't know where to start. Well, you know what? Come and see me. I'd love to help you. It might be resources I can point you to, people I can connect you with. I'd love to help you. Come and see me. You know, you might be a reader and want to study more and get into it more. You know what? I got a cupboard full of books. I don't like them sitting there with no one reading them. Come and borrow them. Read them. Maybe you're not a reader. Maybe there's other ways I can encourage you. But let's learn to live according to his word and to seek him with all our heart. Which leads me on to the next word, which is heart from our Beatitudes. And the Bible has so much to tell us about our heart. If you were to search up the word heart in the Bible, you would be reading for some time about the heart. I've just selected a few verses from the Bible which help us to understand, maybe even when Jesus gave this beatitude, what the people would have been thinking, where their mind would have gone. Things like this. 1 Samuel 16:7 tells us, "But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." See, real followers of Jesus are those who care more about their heart than their outward appearance. Real followers of Jesus who, when they come here on a Sunday morning maybe, spend more time getting their heart ready to meet with Jesus than what clothes they're going to wear. You can wear nice clothes, I'm not opposed to that. But make sure you're spending more time getting your heart ready and picking your clothes. I was laughing to myself as I was thinking about this morning, because for some of you, you'll be thinking, he wears this shirt all the time. You're right, I do. And there's a reason for that. I don't need to think about it. It's comfy, it fits, job done. It is clean. I do wash it in between, by the way, just putting that out there. But I don't need to spend time thinking about what I'm going to wear. It's there. I have one pair of jeans, which is a bit risky, because if I get a rip in them at any point, I'm stuffed. And I have one really comfy shirt that I like to wear. It's one of those sort of flannelly shirts. It's really nice. So, but the Lord is not looking at what I'm wearing. He's looking at my heart. Have I spent time getting my heart ready this morning? More so than the outward appearance. How is your heart right now? Was it ready when you walked in? Or was it not? And that's not just related this to a Sunday morning. That's every day. The Lord is looking at the heart. Every day. Don't just take this as about Sunday morning. Every day. Are you getting your heart ready? Is your heart ready? Or not? You know, I'm not saying you can't look nice. I'm not saying that at all. But it's about priority, isn't it? But what does this start to look like in reality? Well, I love Jesus didn't mess around with his words, and he helps us to see some of this in Matthew 23. It doesn't have the word heart in it necessarily, but I know this is where he was getting at, where he says this to the Pharisees. He says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites. You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you're full of hypocrisy and wickedness." That's brutal, isn't it? He's not messing around. He doesn't care about how you dress. He doesn't care that I'm not maybe in flowing robes this morning. He doesn't care if you come in on a Sunday morning with the biggest Bible. Look at me, my Bible is bigger than the rest of you. He's not looking at that. He's looking at the inside, whether you're alive or whether you're dead. He wants to know, is your heart for him or for something else? That's what he's looking at. If you just care about the outside, he's not bothered. Because all you're doing is trying to appear righteous to other people. He wants your heart. That is what he is after. He's not bothered whether you can say the right Christian words or not. He cares about how your heart is. You know, when Jesus called his disciples, did he call the people that looked right, dressed right, had the right, scrolls with them as it would have been? No, he did not. He called the people that stank of fish, stank of money. These are the people he called because he knew he could have their heart. He wasn't looking at the external. He was looking at the internal. See, following Jesus isn't about behavior modification. It's about heart transformation. Following Jesus is all about. He's not just here to modify your behavior. I do this because it tells me I must. He's doing it to transform your heart. That is why he does what he does. And it is possible because Ezekiel 36 tells us this. He says, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. See, if you are willing, he will give you a heart of flesh. A heart that is thirsting and hungering after him. If you are willing. If you are willing to give him your heart, he is willing to do that for you. Because he knows how important the heart is. Proverbs 4 tells me this, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. You see, there are battlegrounds in the Christian life. The two of the biggest ones I know of are the heart and the mind. But the heart is one of them. Because everything we do flows from your heart. Everything you do. You know, you might think people don't see your actions. I can turn up on a Sunday and appear perfect. But I tell you what, you'll get caught out at some point. Your heart will be exposed. And even if it's not to men, God knows your heart. Everything you do flows from there. We must protect our heart at all costs. But you see, our beatitude we've looked at has talked about blessed are the pure in heart. And so now we need to think about what does this mean together when we've got this purity, this unblemished, this untouched, this unpolluted sort of pureness and the heart, which is something we've got to guard at all costs, and what God looks at. What does that look like? Well, in Psalm 24 it tells us this, he who has clean hands and pure heart, who does not lift up his soul to an idol or swear by what is false, he will receive the blessing from the Lord. What does a pure heart look like? It means there are no idols or swearing to what is false. It means you're not putting anything above God. You're not following anything else more than you're following God in this life. I see too many people who say they're followers of Jesus maybe on a Sunday morning, but the rest of the week they are worshiping something else. I see it too often. I probably fall down in areas of my life where I put other things before God. But the reality is we need to be coming to God for a pure heart. One where we say, actually, I'm not going to swear by anything else. I'm going to trust in you, God, and you alone. No matter the pressure that comes maybe from the culture of the world, the pressure that comes from the people around me, I'm going to trust in you, God. And it's when I do that, what happens? He will receive the blessing from the Lord. If you want to be blessed by the Lord, it is about following Jesus. You can't expect God to be moving and working in your life if you're following someone else. What's he going to do? If you want to see that blessing, come to him. Live by him. Don't follow something else. Of course, he could still move. But the reality is, if you want to see him move in your life, come to him with a pure heart. Follow him. Don't swear to what is false. There's so much in this world now which is trying to grab our attention, which is trying to tell us that is truth. But it's false. It's causing pain and division. 1 Timothy 1:5 also tells us this, the goal of this command is love, which comes from a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere faith. See, pure hearts, what they actually mean, pure hearts that are focused on Jesus, which are not swearing to any other idol, are hearts which learn to love properly. If you want to know what real love is, follow Jesus. He will give you real love and enable you to show real love. And where does that come from? Living according to his word. That's where it comes from. See, if you want to show real love, then living according to Jesus is what we have to do. But then you might be like this morning, and this is how I often am. Psalm 51 says this, "Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me." Maybe this is your prayer today. Create in me a pure heart. I can almost feel the psalm writer here, like this cry from the Psalms, God, just create in me a pure heart. It's someone who is desperate. It's someone who's like, God, I need you. Maybe that's you this morning. Maybe you've realized, or you're starting to realize, that your heart is not living fully for Jesus, or it's maybe not as pure as it should be. And maybe the cry of your heart now is, God, just create in me a pure heart. I hope that today we can respond to that and cry out in this way. But not just today. This should probably almost be the prayer of each day that we get up is, God, just create in me a pure heart today. I want to follow you, Jesus. Help me have a pure heart. But the reality is, how do we make a heart pure? Because it's beyond our reach to make it pure. Because it's God who initiates. It's God who sanctifies. There's that word I mentioned. It's God who perfects the heart of man when they put their trust in him. It begins when we realize we can't do it on our own. It comes through following him. And one day it will be perfected when we are glorified in Jesus himself. But this process of, as I said, this sanctification, this ongoing life process is difficult. It's not easy. It's like a refining. If you want to purify water, what do you have to do to it? You have to heat it to purify it. If you want to purify gold, I don't know if you ever watch any of these things. I watch a lot of these reels online now, these sort of 30-second videos, and there's some fascinating ones out there. And I've seen some of this metal purifying of gold, and they keep heating it and then smacking it, and then all these impurities come to the edge and sort of fall off. It is fascinating to watch to me. You might think you're a bit weird, but I find them fascinating to watch, this process of gold being purified. And they do it time and time again, because all the impurities that come in this lump of metal to start with are all there, mixed in with everything else. And it needs to be heated, and then beaten, and then heated, and then beaten, time and time again. And this is what it is to be refined or to be sanctified in the Christian life. We come under the word of God, we're heated up, and God beats off, not in a literal beating off, by the way, he knocks off those hard bits, those impurities. He looks to refine us, to purify us. But it's not just a once in a lifetime thing. It is a process we need to keep going through. We need to keep willing to put ourselves before God and saying, create in me a pure heart, which actually means, God, you're going to have to do some work in my life. It means I've got to be willing to look at the things, well, I'm a little rough around the edges. It's a refining process for us. And if we're serious about following Jesus, it's one we've got to get involved with. 1 Peter 1 tells us this, "In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a while you may have had to suffer griefs in all kinds of trials. These have come so that your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may be proven genuine and may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed." So how can we pursue purity? By living active fellowship with God. By coming to him, through spending time with him, and not just on a Sunday, every day. By spending time in his presence, through his words, by praying with him, and just looking to be with him. Allowing God to purify us through the power of his Holy Spirit. You've got to be willing. And if you are, then you can be confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. You can be confident of that. Now this beatitude told us that blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Now, I'm not going to comment too much on the seeing God part, apart from the fact that what it means is as we look to be purified, we can come to him. We can see him. Maybe not face to face today, but through Jesus, we can now come to God. Hebrews, it tells me this. Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, we can now come to God. We can see God through Jesus. There's nothing else in the way now. Jesus has won that by a new and living way opened up for us through the curtain. That is his body. And since we have a great high priest over the house of God, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with the full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience and having our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. I'm going to ask the band to come back up because we're going to go back into a time of